Hello and welcome back to my channel. If this is your first time here, my name is Nana and I film about lifestyle, fashion and skincare. And if you're a returning subscriber, thank you for coming back. Please don't forget to subscribe. If you haven't, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, and you can also turn on the notification so that you get notified every time I post a new video. And yeah, let's get into this video.
Slowly kisses passing by the river. I've been missing your strawberry.
Today's video is going to be a tutorial video, my very first tutorial on this channel, and I really hope that I do not give up halfway. I'm going to be making a corset top, a Victorian corset top for a client, and I just decided to document it so that you guys can learn as well. So yeah, this is just me starting off the video, and after this you would see me on my drawing board doing the cutting things. So in this video I might just do the pattern drafting and how to place on the material to cut, and maybe in another video I would show you the sewing process, God help me. But yes, I'm going to be doing the pattern drafting and cutting on the material in this video, and I really hope it is simple enough for whoever needs this video to, draft the pattern. So that being said, let's get into the video. This is the material we'll be working with today, but first let's draft the pattern. So I have this cardboard paper that I'll be using today, and first I'll be folding it into two halves, as I'll be using the other half to cut the to draft the pattern of the back piece. So I'll be starting off by drawing a line at the top of this pattern paper to mark as the starting point for all my measurements. Then I'll go ahead to draw all my horizontal lines that I'll be using to mark out my measurements. These horizontal lines are my bust line, under bust line, waistline and full length. So my bust line is 10 inches, under bust line 13 inches, waistline 16 inches, and the full length of the top, which is 20 inches. To join the point that I've marked with a straight line, and then I go over to impute my shoulder measurement. So I'll be taking my shoulder measurement divided by 2, which is 16 inches divided by 2, giving 8 inches, and I will mark that on that beginning line. I would come down by 1 inch to mark the shoulder slant, and then I'll be marking the depth of my armhole. To get the depth of this armhole, I would be dividing by my bust measurement by 6 and adding 1.5 inches to it. Hence, where I mark my armhole depth, I would draw a straight line across, and that would serve as my chest line. Then I go ahead to label my other horizontal lines. We have the chest line, the bust line, under bust line, waistline and full length. Then I'll go ahead to mark my neck measurements. So I would be taking 3 inches towards to mark the wideness of the neck, and also 3 inches downwards to mark the depth. Even though we don't really need these neck measurements for this particular pattern, we would be using it to mark the shoulder slant. Now I'm just going to be getting the middle point of this armhole depth. Please don't make the same mistake I made. I should have drawn out the shoulder slant before doing this. But after getting the middle point, I would go in by 0.5 inches to get the armhole curve. So now I'm going ahead to impute my bust measurement to this chest line. So that would be, my bust measurement is 36 inches divided by 4. That would be 9. So I will just go to that chest line and mark 9 inches. So as I already explained before, I would be going in by 0.5 inch at that half mark on the armhole depth, and after marking that, finally went ahead to draw my shoulder slant and then join the points of the curve. That's the shoulder curve. I used my curve ruler to achieve this, and next up, the marking out my bust span, which is 8 inches divided by 2, giving 4 inches. So I'll be marking that at the bust line and the waistline, and then using a straight line to join it. I'll be going ahead to impute my waist dart. I'll be using a total of 1.5 inches, and I'll be dividing that into 0.75 inch on both sides. So I'll be going ahead to mark that on my waistline, and yes, 0.75 inches, and then I'll be joining it to the bust line. After joining that, I would be going down to the full length line and coming up by 1 inch. Just watch closely to understand what I'm trying to explain. So after marking that 1 inch point, I would be joining it to the dot lines like this. Then I'll move over to my shoulder measurements, and I'll get the middle point, which is 2.5, and I'll be joining that with a straight line to my bust point. Next up, I would be imputing my measurements. So starting with the waist measurement, I would divide it by 4, which is 32 divided by 4, giving 8 inches. And then I would go ahead to add the 1.5 inches that we took out with the dart line. I would divide my hip measurement by 4, that is 40 inches divided by 4, giving us 10 inches. And I would mark that there, and then join with a straight line. I would join from the point that we marked on the chest line down to the waistline, and then join to the full length line. Going to the chest line and marking 2 inches upwards. This 2 inches would serve as the neckline of the corset top. So you can mark depending on how high or how low you want the top to be. So you can either use 1.5 inches or 3 inches or 2 inches. This point where the two lines meet, I'll be taking 0.5 inch on both sides. This would serve as the upper chest tightening. So after marking that, I would go ahead to join it to the bust point like so. So I'll be coming to this under bust line and marking 1 inch above it, and this 1 inch is because the shoulder to waist measurement of the front is usually higher than the shoulder to waist measurements at the back. So checking the difference, it is a 1 inch difference. So I'll be marking it here and joining to the bust point. Next up, I would be forming my sweetheart neckline by joining this point on the upper chest line to this point on the chest line. I'll be using my curved ruler to achieve this. So after joining to this point, I would also go to the other side and join this point into the armhole curve, and I will just use my marker to smoothen that out. Next thing I would do is to go to my under bust line and impute my under bust measurement divided by 4, which gives me 8.5 inches. So after marking that, I will just check the remnant of that of the 8.5 on the line we've marked. So I would measure that, and that gives us 1 inch. So I will just go ahead to split that 1 inch at the dot. So I would take it, I would add 0.505 to one side and add 0.25 to the other side. I would be joining these 2 points to the bust points using my curved ruler like this. Now go ahead to join that point to these points we have close to our full length, and you will notice that it has missed the points of these darts, but that's not really a problem. So I just want to add that you can impute as many darts as you want to this pattern, but for the purpose of this particular corset top, I would be using just this draft. I want this top to have a curve at the hemline. I'll be coming up at this full length line by 1 inch and then using my curved ruler to join it to the middle of this pattern like this. So I would go ahead and shade all the parts that I'm going to cut out, just so I do not get confused while cutting it out. Yes, then I would go ahead to cut out the pieces of this pattern. Pay close attention so you don't miss anyone. Points that we marked out, I'll just be cutting it almost close to the tip, and then I would be dragging this upwards and using a tape to hold it. This is done so that when you join your back piece to the front piece, they meet at the same point. So I'll be going ahead to label these pieces so that we don't get confused. We have the center front and the side front. Now to draft the back pattern, I would be rushing through this because it's very similar to what we did in the front. So I'll be marking the full length, and that is just the full length of the front minus 1 inch because of the difference. And then I'll go ahead to mark the bust point, which is 10 inches, and the waist point. The difference in the waist point is 1 inch. So we use 16 for the front. I would be using 15 for the back. So I will just draw out all these lines. Then going on to mark the neckline, 3 inches for wideness and 1 inch for the depth because it's the back. Then I would mark my shoulder measurement, which is 8 inches, then come down by 1 inch to mark the slant, and then I will just draw out my armhole, just basically the same thing we did in the front. Then I would mark the bust band like we did in the front and join it with a straight line down. I would also take the darts like we also did in the front. One of the major differences at this back is that I'll be coming up by 1 inch at the bust line to get the bust point that we'll be using to join the darts, and at the full length line I would also be coming up by 1 inch. Then I would use a ruler to join that. Then I would go ahead to impute my body measurements. I would put my waist measurement and add the extra 1.5 inches that was taken away for the darts, and mark my hip measurement at the full length and then join like this. I would mark 1 inch at this hemline upwards just to have that same curve that we marked in the front. At the waistline, I would be coming in by 0.5 inch just to have an extra cinch to the waist. So this 0.5 inch is from the zip allowance, and I would be joining it to this hemline and to the top of my pattern like so. I would be joining the neckline of my back pattern using this curved ruler. So I'll just join it from the armhole to the middle point of this pattern. So I'll just go ahead to cut out my back pieces, and I'll label them the center back and the side back. And with that, we have come to the end of this video. This is our pattern draft for the Victorian corset. In another video, I will be showing you how I place this on my material to cut and how I do the sewing process. So if you enjoy this video, please don't forget to like, comment, share, subscribe. If you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the comment section, and I'll be willing to answer every one of them. Thank you for watching.